Welcome to the world united. Welcome to the world united.
And, and now we're getting ready for our panel discussion. So I would like to invite Christine Powers. She's the founder of Philosopher's Camp, and we just heard from her. I would like to invite Zach Thompson. Zach is a filmmaker, environmentalist, a humanitarian. And I would like to invite Deb Alder. Deb Alder is a singer, songwriter, spiritual scientist, an interfaith minister, LGBT advocate, and entrepreneur. She's been a program facilitator with the Learning Center for Human Development and worked together with Parisha for over 36 years. And we had the honor, pleasure of hearing Deb Adler's amazing voice and listening from her the healing power and uniting power of music. So welcome, Deb. Could I invite you to unmute yourselves? Hi. So today, what we'll be talking about in the panel discussion is the recognition of sacredness in every mineral, plant, animal, and just about everywhere, like every single thing in the entire earth. And and I've heard from all of you and how you all bring the sacredness in your work, and you have shared about that. But I would like to hear more about you is how do you bring the sacredness that is in your work to the people? I want to get a little more into that. Like for example, Zach, I know he has worked, he's been a producer in the movie Avatar. And I think that was one of those first movies in the public consciousness that stayed, where we saw how everything is just connected to everyone. And this was a way of reaching out. Would you like to elaborate on that experience, Zach? And then we hear from everyone about their work, about the Philosopher's Camp and about how you all integrate, how do you all share what is sacred, your experience of that, and how you share it in your work with people.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, sure. I'd love to share. It was actually I was actually a coordinator there on Avatar, and it was amazing. It was one of the first times, one of the very few times on a film project it actually felt like a family. And I actually credit a lot of that to Jim Cameron and the way he set things up, and also the premise of the movie Avatar. It although it takes place on a fictitious planet, it's the principles in it are true, and they resonate, I think, with everybody that watched it, that it felt like it's something that their religious tenets, their spirituality, whatever that they're coming from, it feels like there was everyone felt kind of grounded and connected in some way at that movie. It resonated truth. And it was a fun ride, but it was interesting because I was able to, I felt that I was connected with the rest of the family. We were all working towards this objective on this super complex system, tracking the information between all these different departments. It was actually the most complicated film project ever. And of course, Jim was a genius. But I felt like the environment that he set up that we worked in, although it was very, quick and high at moments, high tension, it felt like it kind of mirrored it, with the actual movie Avatar, in the sense that, we are all connected and everything does connect. And I've tried to emulate that same kind of environment when working on any other project, especially ones that I'm in charge of, to be able to kind of bring that same environment where everybody coming from all walks of life can feel that they have something to contribute and feel important and feel a part of the project. And one of the things I love to do is be able to connect with people on fundamental aspects where we all connect. And then the beauty is the diversity that we all bring to the table, that we all have different thoughts and ideas and experiences. And that's actually what I think makes things even better when we start contributing. So I I felt like that was one of the things that contributed to my, I think, just method operandi of trying to, bring everybody together and connect on some fundamental areas, and then start adding on top everybody's, gifts and talents. And so, so it was great environment. And it was, ironically, the film set and the actual, the content of the movie, the premise was actually quite unifying.
Wow, it sounds like it mirrored each other. It's beautiful. Would anyone else like to share about their experience? But
Yeah,
how
I'd
did
love
they
to.
bring sacredness? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was actually really mindfully brought to the sacred and the profane, right? The two sides of one coin through my Sufi training. And it's something we really dance with at Philosophers Camp. So here's the thing, it's a choice. It's a choice with which lens you're going to look at something. And it can be this flashlight. It can be this roll of toilet paper. I mean, it's the way I learned that very viscerally, that I've never forgotten, is years ago on a Sufi retreat. I thought it was nuts at the time. We were asked to pick an inanimate object and spend 45 minutes with it. And I was like, really? But I went into the kitchen, I'm wandering around, and this blue beat up tea kettle caught my attention. And I started by flipping it over, and it was made in Germany. And I was noticing the chips and how old it was. And as time went on, I got into such a deep relationship with this tea kettle, right? All the people before me that it had made tea for. Its journey from Germany to the US, who made it, what was its beginnings? And I realized, like, if you just take a moment and look around you right now and imagine everything around you has that level of story and service. So so we also play with the profane, and and it's joyful. The sacred doesn't always have to be so serious. So so I think the biggest takeaway is that it's our choice to flip the lens.
That is such a soulful practice, Christine. With gratitude to you, I'm going to adopt it. I think there are many objects in my own home that need that love or just my connection with them, And,
yeah, it could take you days to get out of your bedroom.
I may adopt these practices, especially for my husband's tools that I'm not in so much in love with. Maybe I will do that with them. I'll do some time.
That's an excellent idea.
Thank you, Christine. Deb, would you like to add something? Please feel free to chip in. I get specific questions, but they can be a general question, and everyone just can feel free to jump in.
I am happy to. Of course, I've been, as you say, privileged to work with my spiritual elder, who's a global leader and humanitarian, grandmother Parisha, for over 34 years. I did a little overcounting there in the intro. And of course, we're so privileged to have her and Dr. Yugandhar in this project of the World Parliament for Spirituality and bringing us to unity. Many of the things that I felt inherently growing up were emphasized again through the sharings of Grandmother Parisha, and that is, many people, let me say that many people look at indigenous practices and indigenous people and think that they worship trees or worship rocks or worship, the animals. And yet there's a saying in the Jewish tradition, God, where are you not? And so, God is in all things, whatever word you use for that, great spirit, Wakananda, whatever, name you use, it's genderless to me. As I like to say with some friends, I stopped trying to dress it, name it, assign a sex to it years ago. It is creator in all forms. and exists in all things. And even in the Christian Bible, where we talk about God being omnipresent, well, again, then how could God not be in the trees? How could God not be in the stones? How could God not be in any material thing throughout the universe? So in terms of recognizing the sacredness, then indeed all things are sacred, because all things are just different expressions of Creator. Just as the differences that have been addressed between us as human beings, it's really our diversity, you know, it's our strength and our diversity. And yes, I mean, all things, all people, all beings are sacred and a necessary part of the great mosaic. You know, Grandmother Parrish often talks about recipe. If you have one ingredient missing from a lemon cake, it's no longer a lemon cake. So, you know, if we have one ingredient missing from the universe, then our it's like having a puzzle, and you get to the very last moment and you find that last piece is missing from the box. Then you don't have a whole picture, you know. So it's celebrating that all life is sacred, and all beings are part of that sacredness. And then recognizing that then in that case we have no differences. And I think that that's Zach talked about bringing that to the forefront, and Christine has too, and that as we recognize that and honor that, we realize you know, we strengthen ourselves and we bring a greater harmony to ourselves and others.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Can I just to say something? This has actually just been very, trying to think of the best word, soothing, comforting, hearing the thoughts that you've shared, and Christine, the things that you've shared. Deb, I feel like there's this greater connection as I hear you talking and the things that you're saying. It's such an interesting dichotomy to have so many differences and so many, and of course that's what makes life so beautiful, right? All of our different, you know, ideas and thoughts and the way things are. But it's so beautiful when we have these moments like this to be able to connect and to be able to see remind ourselves that we are, you know, we're a part of a giant family. We are so interconnected. And the more time that we hear from each other and listen to each other, it's hearing you, for example, I feel just like that much more compassion and that much more appreciation for your contributions. And Christine, when we were walking us through the images of the, during your talk, it was beautiful. And you're speaking to me as a filmmaker. I mean, I was thinking to myself, man, I should have used a lot more. Video and imagery in my thing, because it was such a wonderful journey. And there's nothing that can, in storytelling and sharing, when the spirit can be, you know, testify of truth through imagery, through the music that you brought, through the spoken word that you shared. It was just so elevating as a whole, being a part of this. And I think the more that we can do this and kind of take a step away from the fast paced moving world, I think the better, like I'm just encouraged to make this, you know, with you, try to do all our part to make this a better place. I mean, a better world. I mean, obviously there is opposition in all things. And one of the good things that have come from this COVID global lockdowns is the fact that it's forced us to kind of slow down and kind of rethink a little bit and kind of reset a little bit. And what a perfect way to, you know, as we come in closer to these holiday seasons and spending this, you know, the end of the year to kind of recap and collect, you know, and hearing this has just been it's been a sacred moment for me to be able to hear from all of you and feel you and hear you and see you a little bit more. So to me, I am just incredibly grateful for this. I'm grateful for each one of you.
That is so beautiful, Zach. You know, as I'm hearing you all, I feel I'm in this, you know, I'm in this aware world where everything is connected. And no matter where you are in the world, it is connected, whether you're aware or not. And I'm feeling the vibrational energy of this space, but then I'm reminded that not so long ago we had the elections. And no matter what side you were, it was so polarized. It's almost like you were talking to your own people on either side. And we've talked about feeling connected. We've talked about bridging, and we see that polarization when it comes to environmental issues. We said that in politics. We see that everywhere. What is something broken, and how do we bridge this? How do we integrate this? This is something I really passionately feel, because I feel I'm in the spiritual world where the connection and honestly, I shouldn't call it the spiritual world. I'm just calling it for the ease of definition. But there is this world where everyone is talking like this and wanting to connect. And then I step outside times and I see the polarization, and I'm like, how? And I see it everywhere, environment and man, between people. How is something broken, and how do we connect this again?
That's the
I'll take it.
$64,000 question, right?
Yeah. I'll be the guinea pig and go first. And
I felt so strongly about. I feel this needs to be discussed and asked.
It does. It sure does. So when I mentioned before how the forest is life unedited, right?
Mm-hmm,
The flip side of that is each of us, if you look at the four of us here right now, the four of us, I don't know where I got five from. There must be someone else visiting. Like, whoa. We have such a diverse set of circumstances. And as Madison was talking about how we come into this world, before we take our first breath, so much is preordained. The expectations of our community, our family, our level of education, those things and we're set on a track, right? Like there's 4 tracks in this conference and we're set on a track. So you have 7.5 billion people with 7.5 billion tracks. So where do we find that cross-pollination? And when 2 things are evolving that are making it kind of challenging. One is when you have so many sources of information, if you cannot agree on a basic framework of reality, there's no room for discussion. There's no way to cross through the intellect, through mind, through ideas. And gosh, we call them limiting beliefs. We call them what they are. What I mentioned before is there's nothing broken with any of us. We have forgotten who we are, or we've been told that we're something that maybe we aren't. And I experienced that in my life, a choice point at 19 to become a river guide or go to college. I went to college because I was supposed to. So at 38, 48, I come back to the mountains all over again, right? Because I began to examine and open my mind and to lift away that death, dying to myself every day, layer upon layer upon layer. But not everyone's on that journey. Not everyone is awake or open or willing to look at the constructs of their life. So that makes it hard to find a way to bridge. So we do it through things like music. We do it through things like movies. We do it through things like storytelling. We do it through things like just bringing people on my mountain and letting the land do the work. And we do it through, I'm actually going to launch a project very soon called Self-Care for America. It's too soon because nobody's really interested in reconciliation yet. But the premise of that is that we base, getting down to the very base is we all love our families. We all have that in common. We all want the best. So those are my opening thoughts. No solution, but just my thoughts on it.
Christine, that's how we get to the solution. So really appreciate that. And I think the project that you want to, really to touch everyone's baseline, I think it's so needed and so important. Thank you.
Interestingly, I appreciate what you were saying, Christine. That's very elevating. It's interesting because I think that I believe that we all have a right to feel how we feel. And some people might have already experienced something and might be able to pass on some wisdom to somebody else to say, hey, look, here's a way I did my journey, that here's a way to, metaphorically, like, don't touch the hot stove here if you don't have to, try to avoid certain scars, right? But I think one of the things that's been helpful for me is to realize that everybody is equally important. I mean, the society might judge things different and pay people different accordingly, but everybody has value, and everybody, I believe, generally speaking, has I think this baseline that kind of another baseline that connects us is that we're all just trying to better ourselves in some way. We're all trying to just live our lives and do the best we can with what information we're given. And so when I go into a conversation, I've found that it's much more difficult because it's easier to actually find divisiveness. That's, how people try to divide people on the minutia, on the little things, when in all reality, I think we all generally try to solve the problems the best way we know how. And so the more we listen and hear where people are coming from, the more we understand them, and they go, okay, I think I see where you're coming from. I think I perhaps, would solve the problem a little bit differently. But the more we move away from the enemies, which are fear, anxiety, the unknown, that's when I think it creates division. But if we come into just like as much as we can, obviously none of us are perfect at this, and I have to constantly remind myself, instead of falling back into these kind of primitive, behaviors and the natural man that, wants things our way and how we want to do it, but being able to like hear and see somebody's story and say, this is why I'm coming from this perspective. And when you understand that, like all of a sudden you connect and go, okay, things are a bit more complex than I thought. There's not just a super simple answer for everything. But at the base, like the only way I think you can oversimplify things is the fact that if we all kind of approach things with compassion and understanding, like we're going to solve 99% of the world's problems just with those two things. The minutia, the things where we perhaps differ, or the questions we may have, or somebody may have some information and want to share that with others because it worked in my circumstance, in my life, it might work in yours. As long as we approach it with respect to others, then I think we're going to be able to accomplish a lot more. But you're right, Christine. It may not be immediate. And in fact, Mansi, as you're talking about, like right now, there's a lot of heated, people right now. And again, I think everybody has a good cause or comes from a place, where they have legitimate reasons. On the full spectrum, but at the end of the day, if we just try to understand each other, and in fact, one last thing on this thought is just that I found that, and you guys kind of touched on it, is this gratitude. The more we're grateful, the more we focus on the things that we've been giving, hashtag give thanks, if we're just constantly thinking about that in our mindset, we find that all of a sudden we start focusing on all the things that we have that are going well. And then all the things that, aren't going so well, they kind of become less important, and we kind of be a little bit more of a level of peace. And anyway, I just want to share that.
Amen.
Yes, absolutely.
Amen, brother. Just
Absolutely.
to insert one point, it's kind of like the release of movies, like I was going to launch this project the day after Election Day, and then I got held up technically. And then by the time I was ready to launch, it was like, oh, brother, it's just not time. The market's not ready. So I love what you said, Zach. Gosh, I love it. That's just piling on juiciness and really solid truth.
And I think in a way, America, oops, I'm not mute. America is ready. I see a hunger for wanting to get past all of this. And as you say, Zach, we need to respect each person's individual concern, because we can say, well, America is the land of the free and the home of the brave. And yet we can say, well, this group isn't free, this person isn't free, that there's a dichotomy here, and wanting to address the truth. But I find it, yeah, and I find it interesting. Just yesterday I shared a statistic that Apple released, and they said that since March they have had the greatest increase in downloads of meditation apps. So
That's awesome.
In this time of people being, frozen in their own places and running out of live streaming TV shows and whatnot, catching up on things. People are starting to turn within, and more stories, people are realizing, I need to reinvent myself, or they have to reinvent themselves because of losing jobs and things like that. And, I do believe people are hungry to get past the divide and just needing to find ways to do that. And again, when we can emphasize, how we are alike. In my personal experience, one of the groups that I work with, I've been privileged to be working with recovering alcoholics for over 41 years. I just celebrated 41 years last Thursday or Tuesday or something. But anyway, the point being, the most unlikely group of people will assemble in a recovery meeting. People that would never associate outside of that one common focus of helping it to recover from their addiction and to help others recover from their addiction. You have people from all walks of life, all ages, all philosophies, politics, and it's all left outside the door. It's left outside the door. People come in and focus on that common goal and that common intent. And the more that we can help people focus on a common thought, that's what global meditation is, right? When we can get people to put their differences aside, and whether you're praying or doing mindful thought, or again, whatever word you want to apply the activity, you have people coming together in prayer, thought, meditation, to a common intent and a common goal. And then that helps elevate the consciousness. So I think, again, people are hungry and just, we need to, as people, leaders in the spiritual community, just keep reaching out and just emanating ways to help bring that, help facilitate that in forums like this and in our own personal work.
Oh man, amen to that, Debbie. That's beautiful. Thank you.
That is so heartening, to know that people have this hunger, when people have this hunger, that is the most hopeful thing I've heard, actually, that, there is this hunger among people. I want to go, we have been discussing this throughout this session, but I want to get, as we getting towards the end of the session, I want to get to the practical aspects of how we can heal this connection with the environment, because we have global environmental issues that we are facing on multiple fronts, whether it be finite water, as Zach talks about in his documentary, or just other resources. We have global warming. We have so many global environmental crises that we all need to deal together. What are some of the practical ways or any ideas that you have how we can contribute, everyone who's listening in, tuning in today, can contribute towards healing and reconnecting with the environment?
I'm sure Christine and Deb will have some beautiful contributions on how we can kind of ground and be connected with the environment. But on a technical kind of I'll share something really quickly, because in fact, the objective of Finite Water was to instead of being one of those scare tactic films that's saying, hey, the sky's falling, the world's going to fall apart if we don't, ban straws or whatever, then, to me, I don't think fear is a motivator, but it's not the best motivator. And so I wanted to kind of approach it with, more of a, something that everybody can do on a day-to-day basis. And when you start to realize that, if you're trying to move the mountain by yourself with a shovel, like it'll take you a long time. But if everybody grabs a shovel and moves the scoop, metaphorically, then we can do it. Like it's amazing the statistics when you realize simple things like just picking up garbage or turning off the water when you're brushing your teeth. You start to think, really, can I really have an impact? And so hopefully I was trying to accomplish that with the documentary and of course, forums like these where it's also quite interesting just to see how people are even polarized. Like some people, it's the semantics that we use. For example, global, climate change, global warming, global freezing. So you get, like, because of semantics, people, different words are loaded. So some people I know are like, well, what? Well, we need oil, and and they're for fracking, and then some people are against it, and then some people, we need wood, and then some people are like, well, but this deforestation is not helping. Like, there's all these different, unsustainable approaches, but that's one of the reasons why I was trying to find some just common ground to kind of just bring everybody, apolitically saying, look, we all need water, people. Let's start with that. And so I try to just start with like just something where we can find some common ground, because people do have, when you truly listen, you realize there are things to be heard on all sides, and maybe you have time for that, maybe you don't. But when you are able to, and very few people, I think at the moment, I'm hoping that as these, we have more of these forums and try to understand each other and take time to listen to one another, I think that's when we make the most progress, because then we leave feeling heard, and we also leave feeling empowered, hopefully, to think, okay, I also heard and learned from other people. Maybe let's start applying these different things. And so, and again, I don't, like I said, greater women and men than I, will solve some of the larger problems, but just being able to connect with you four right now and all those, listening, I think that that's a start. I think that the more often we do this kind of stuff, we can talk about the details, but I think we need to find that commonality, the common grounds first, and then build from there. And if we approach it like everybody, assuming everybody has the best intention of improving themselves and everything around them, then it feels like we're all in the same, trying to achieve the same objective, even though we might have different ideas on how to do that.
Thank you, Zach. Would love to hear from Christine. Yes, Deb, please go on.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I love the example that you provided earlier, and that is that, if you start picking up trash, someone's going to say, oh, thank you. Or then they're going to imitate that behavior, because then, somehow they have permission, somehow it's like, oh, it's okay to do that. It's okay to care. I think too, and I just, for whatever reason, this came to me, I work in sales, and one of the things that a method is to find someone's pain. So when we're looking for how do we reach a commonality, it's like, well, how does this issue affect the person on that very personal level? Because until they connect with a thought or a theory on their personal level, it's always out there. It's somewhere, that's somebody else's problem. I don't care if, I live in Arizona. I don't care if they're fracking in Pennsylvania. They don't get the connection with the Earth Mother, that it comes through the entire planet. So I think as we listen more to each other and we strive to find that commonality and look for how does this actually affect that person individually, because then you've made a connection. And once you have that connection, then there is the possibility to see that, oh, this affects me, this affects my children, this affects my grandchildren. Now I have a vested interest. Now I have a stake in this issue. And then again, we're looking at a commonality between many different types of people instead of what our differences are. And once we can focus on that common issue and then take it to action, not just talk about it, but take it to action, then we can, move that forward. And I think a lot of people often, that song that I sang in the Australia program, one of the lines is that people are just waiting to be shown the way. So many people are just waiting to know how to proceed and what to do. And once we bring that as emissaries, so to speak, then more have the ability to join in and go, okay, it's okay. Those are my thoughts.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Ooh, okay. Now I have like 5 streams going at once. Absolutely beautiful. And I keep hearing this common ground. And like with Zach, common ground, like water is my issue with Philosopher's Camp. That's my chosen area for the environment because it's something we can all get around, right? And I want to bring up a couple of thoughts. One is this aspect, Deb, that you were talking about, identifying with others. And I'm going to employ another image, Zach, and I know you'll get this as a filmmaker. I remember viscerally learning in high school about the March of the Khmer Rouge, where millions were marched to their death. We can't get our heads around that. So there's a famous photograph of a little pair of little baby girl red shoes, all dusty by the side of the road. That we can get our hands around, that we can understand. And so the first thing is practically to, when things are so abstract, they also have a tendency to be out there, not relevant and overwhelming. So as I was talking about earlier, bring it back to yourself. It's you with you. It's you in the deep, dark forest. And when you are a reflection of what's happening, when you bring peace to yourself, you will emanate peace. When you pick up that piece of trash by the side of the road, I promise you, you're going to have a little boost of energy and feel good, right? So little baby things, as we go, the planet goes. And if that's why something like the World Parliament on Spirituality is so important, right? We're having this small conversation, but there's hundreds of these conversations happening. And so the ripples can begin, and then the amplification can begin. So what I'm going to say is return to nature, whether you have a mountain like I have, or a park, or even just a plant on your windowsill. Get in relationship with it, because it'll bring you back to you. Download those meditation apps, as Deb was saying, you know, because when we bring peace to ourselves, then we can be that bridge to reach out to others. Then we can first see the common ground and have that compassion, and we're not attached, and we don't have to be right. Then we can let love win. So my choice of teacher is to bring people to nature, because nature's the best teacher. So just remember, as we go, the earth goes, and everything is a relationship and a reflection of what's happening within us. Gaia's going to be fine. The earth is going to be fine. When we talk about saving the earth, I wonder how many realize, are we really talking about saving ourselves and remembering our divinity and remembering our rightful place? Yes, we are stewards, but we are the same. So let's begin by stewarding ourselves.
Yes. Amen, as they say, right? That's, I mean, centering yourself and grounding yourself, as obviously, what do they say? We're a reflection of what we imprint on others is kind of a reflection on ourselves. And anyway, what is Masaru Emoto said, water is the mirror that has the ability to show us what we cannot see. Thanks for your words, Christine. And Deb, thank you. Those are incredible suggestions. I think I love meeting people, because I found that you can absolutely learn something from everyone you meet. And then of course you share the best you can to help edify others.
Yeah. I have goosebumps everywhere.
This is awesome. And I'm going to take it a step further, because I like to study, I consider myself an amateur study of electromagnetic fields and the energy of the sun and our relationship to that. And there's a greater picture, of course, not only our involvement with the Earth Mother, but our part within, you know, our little piece of the mosaic of the universe. And although space is described as a vacuum, and no pun intended, we don't live in a vacuum. So everything that's taking place, many of the changes that are taking place geologically on our planet are also taking place on planets just within our solar system. And then there's the great, you know, the greater magnified universe. So there's no end to the greatness that we are a part of, and that we don't exist just on the planet. We don't exist just within ourselves or just on the planet. We do have a greater connection that goes out infinitely.
Thank you, Deb. Just concluding with the thoughts. When Zach was talking about water memory, I remember when I first saw those crystals. Can you say the name again? The crystals that were crystallized by the Japanese scientists that Zach just read the quote from. When I saw those crystals and the effect of words on water and the divinity of water, it is something you cannot unsee. Once you have seen it, my whole relationship with the water has changed, and especially living in California, you really feel the value, I come in India from a place which gets flooded. So, but to come to the other side of the earth and to see the value, the need of water, and then to see those images, and Christine, the way you summed it up, because you say, it feels that we are just talking, but it feels what we are creating is a vibrational field, and things are being said, and it will ripple to all those conversations. Somewhere there are thousands of conversations, but this will ripple and will create some connection on a vibrational field. And I'm sure when it is created on a vibrational field, with that electromagnetism that Deb was talking about, when the conversation happens in real life, it's going to get easier. We're going to be able to relate more because work has been done on the vibrational field. So when we come to the level of our mental, emotional, physical bodies, and we are doing the talking, it's going to become so much more easier. And which is these spiritual elements, they sound very very up there, but they're very, very necessary. So thank you for expressing that, and sharing your amazing, amazing, amazing insights. I feel you've all been mentors to me today. And so you've been mentors to all the viewers, because I'm really their representative here. So you've been mentors to all these viewers, guiding them on what they can do now, how they can engage more, communicate more, just be more aware of the environment, go into ceremonies with the environment, and just be great observers of themselves, of environment. Thank you so much. And with this, I would like to conclude the session.